The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Thank you for coming to the Project Entertainment Network store. Please place your order. A good choice. A t-shirt for the horror show with Brian Keene. A Manta Method coffee mug. There's more. A Necrocast icon hoodie. That's sharp. But why on earth would you want Bizong leggings? Wait, are you Mr. Frank? The Project Entertainment Network store, stacked with goodies from all your favorite podcasts. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
There shall come a podcast. A podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
And I am Christopher Golden, and Brian, I give you a hearty Excelsior.
Excelsior you, my friend. It's good to be back on the airwaves with you.
It is. It's been, the last month or so, has been, a couple months really, have been difficult for us to coordinate with various travels and conventions and illnesses and just deadlines, man.
It has been. The show has almost felt like a standard episode of Three Guys with Beards.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. It hasn't been that bad. Hey, we did record Three Guys with Beards last week, so that was good. But
congratulations on with all three of you, or with a standard?
No,
beard?
all three of us.
Wow, that's a rarity.
Yeah, it is. It is, and we're, although it doesn't seem like it's happening this week. So, we'll see.
Well, that's okay. Defenders Dialogue is happening this week.
That's right. Brian, now that you brought up Three Guys with Beards, we had, a good chunk of our episode last week dedicated to encouraging our listeners to go out and vote. And since the election is 1 week from today, I think we should just take a moment to non-politically, miraculously, say that everything that you have in this country, if you're listening to this from the United States of America, everything you have in this country, you have because of the people who did vote, for good or for ill. So be one of those people who gets to decide the future of the country for yourself.
Absolutely, and to echo you, Chris, my readers of my work, they know that, I'm not going to tell them who to vote for, because we're all adults and we can all make up our own minds.
Right.
And, you vote for who you vote for, and you deal with the consequences. But I would remind folks, during my years of service, the 4 years that I served, I was lucky enough to see much of the world. And I traveled to a lot of awesome countries, and I traveled to several countries where people don't have that right. And I know we kind of take it for granted here in this country. I know I myself am guilty of taking that. In our last election, much to Chris's chagrin, I was one of those, I don't like either candidate people. But it's still important to do it. So yeah, absolutely. If for no other reason than, for 4 years, I was protecting our country. Think about that.
I know, really. God, folks.
Yeah, that's how bad it is, folks. They had me protecting.
I just want to make clear, however, that the United States of America did not employ Brian Keene as a diplomat. Let's make that perfectly clear.
Actually, they did. Not as an official diplomat, but one time in the Navy, we had some Egyptian officials, some Egyptian diplomats. We hosted them on board our ship, and 19-year-old me and my buddy Dan Blumenthal, we escorted two of the daughters to and from the dinner. And
God.
and we gave them a tour of the ship, and it almost caused an international incident. But this is not the show for that. This is the show to talk about comic books.
Yes, it is. Well, but and also though, before on a completely different subject, I have another non-comic book thing to say, which is that this morning on a TV commercial, it's amazing the older you get, Brian, how many pieces of music you thought would never be in a TV commercial end up in TV commercials because, who cares anymore? This morning, I was thrown back to our childhood again by a TV commercial playing Jerry Reed's "Eastbound and Down," and I thought that must have been one of your anthems as a kid.
It's still one of my anthems when I'm driving. That's one of my go-to. I'm on the highway and need to get somewhere fast songs.
How did I know that? Anyway, all right. Well, on that note, friend, the Defenders 110. Take it away, because this should be an all Brian Keene issue, but I will chime in.
Well, I was actually thinking about that. Today we're going to cover Defenders 110 and 111. 110 is all Devil Slayer all the time. 111 is all Hellcat all the time. And we could almost, split this up into, I'll take the first half of the show and you take the second half.
Well, we will share, however. But I know where your loyalties lie and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, this is a sad, bittersweet show for me, because this is, in fact, the last time we will talk about Devil Slayer on this podcast.
I doubt that.
Well, I mean, we may mention it, but this is for the classic Defenders run.
Right.
The original series. This is issue 110, marks his final appearance in the series with the team, and he's not even with the team. It's a Devil Slayer solo story, and we open with him in this weird dimension known as the Negative Zone. Now, if you're a Fantastic Four fan, you are familiar with the Negative Zone, but basically it's like an antimatter dimension. And he has gone there via his shadow cloak, and he is cradling the dead body of Sunshine. If you remember past episodes, Sunshine was the hippie that he befriended, and then the sorcerer Ian Fate tricked Devil Slayer into killing Sunshine. And now he's brought Sunshine's body here to the Negative Zone.
I feel like we should take a moment so that you can dab away the tears that you're.
It's sad. No, it is sad. I mean, this is
it is sad. It is sad.
This is a hero. Why is he in the Negative Zone? He has come here to die. This is a superhero who's about to commit suicide. Now, this is not the first Marvel superhero that did that. That goes to Jean Grey, the Phoenix, in Claremont's classic Dark Phoenix saga. But while that was bombastic and, true heroism, I mean, Jean Grey killed herself to save millions. In Devil Slayer's case, in the hands of J.M. DeMatteis, this is dark and emotional, and he's not making some grand gesture to save the world. He's going to kill himself out of depression and
guilt.
grief.
Yep.
Yeah, and guilt.
Yeah, no, it's pretty dark. But so we get the flashback that explains everything that led up to this moment, and then we get the moment where Eric Simon Payne is sort of, raging at really in many ways the powers that be, but also his own guilt. He's raging at his he's sort of having this argument with his conscience in a way. He's saying, I don't want to die. Why should I have to die? And then, Brian, something very strange happens.
Yeah. Sunshine's ghost climbs out of his body.
Which apparently in the Negative Zone is a thing. I don't know. Like, why does that happen, by the way? And the Sunshine says, in his very hippie way, you're right, man. So let's get out of this place. It gives me the willies. Eric Simon Payne sort of embraces him with the shadow cloak in a very sort of kind, almost gentle way. This is the Haunting of Hill House episode of Defenders dialogue. Anyway, they leave the negative zone behind just as the asteroid that they're floating on burns or ignites and destroys itself.
Right.
And they find themselves back in New York City. Well, and when I say they, let's make it clear, Brian, it's Devil Slayer and the Ghost of Sunshine.
Right.
In a very Christmas Carol kind of way. Right.
I'm sorry, you stunned me. I was just sitting there thinking I should pitch Marvel a Christmas Carol with Devil Slayer.
There you go. So I read your mind again. Is that what you're saying?
You did.
Anyway, so they're in this bar, and Eric Simon Payne says, "Bartender drinks for my companion and myself." Of course, the bartender only sees a guy in a costume. He doesn't see the ghost, and so all of a sudden, Devil Slayer is not in costume anymore, and he uses his psychic powers, such as they are, to erase the shock on the bartender, or in the bartender's mind, and so then basically Eric Simon Payne, looking as rough as we have ever seen him.
Well, and that's something I want to bring up. Don Perlin and Mike Esposito, of course, did the artwork on this issue. This is not something I noticed as a teenager. I didn't notice it until this reread. When we see Devil Slayer in costume in the negative zone, he looks, very polished, very smooth. He's a superhero. But when he lets his psychic guard down and reveals himself to the bartender, notice the 5 o'clock shadow on his face.
Oh, it's a midnight shadow, my friend.
Yeah, midnight shadow. None of that was there when he was in costume.
Right.
Which makes me wonder if who he looked like in the costume was a psychic projection. And this is we see just how far he's fallen. He's disheveled. He's slovenly. As you said, he's got a midnight shadow. He's unhinged.
Yeah, and he's drinking, and he says, "What's wrong, Sunshine? Why aren't you drinking?" Disregarding the fact that Sunshine is unlikely to be able to lift a glass, being insubstantial. And Sunshine basically starts to give him a lecture, saying, "Look, you were all down on me because of my drug problem. That I was an addict, but look at you. Like you're an addict too. So it doesn't have to be, you were the one who was lecturing me about how dumb it was, quote, to look for security outside myself in a pill or a bottle, and here you are."
Right.
And that does not sit well with Eric Simon Payne.
No, it does not. They get into it, and then the Devil Slayer he's more confused and more broken than ever. He says, "How can I be responsible for killing a man and for saving his soul? I need to get away, need to think." He turns back into Devil Slayer, and his last thought is he going insane? And then he flings himself across the multiverse, going from dimension to dimension. And as he does, his hunger grows.
And then we have an interlude, Brian, where Luann, who was recently the girlfriend of the now deceased, as far as we know, Kyle Richmond, a.k.a. Nighthawk,
is meeting with his attorney, Rosenblum, who we've seen many, many times in the Defenders.
I guess we could just sum this up, though, Brian, and just say that Rosenblum has told Luann that Kyle is dead, and she refuses to believe it and storms out saying that she's going to find out the truth.
Right. The government has covered up what happened to Kyle. Listeners know, of course, that he died in the Secret Empire's underground bunker in Colorado. He trapped August Masters in there with him and blew it up. Although you may remember the cliffhanger from 2 episodes ago, he appeared in another dimension to Namor, the Hulk, and Doctor Strange. And we don't know what's going on with that yet.
Right.
But here on our world, he's dead.
Yes. We cut back to Eric Simon Payne, who now drops or adopts again the guise of Devil Slayer. And he's in the worst shape we've ever seen him on this page. He just gets worse and worse in this issue. He stumbles into an alley. He really is going back and forth between the costumed and non-costumed guys, and he finds himself looking up into either a window, or it must be a window of reflective surface, and he sees himself finally, and just how shitty he looks, and he smashes the glass, and the captions, which illustrate his thoughts, are him saying how much he hates himself. And he's bleeding. His hands are bleeding until he goes back. And now, Brian, I want to point out one thing in the art here, which I thought was really interesting. Now, when he's Devil Slayer, suddenly he's Devil Slayer, but he looks just as shitty as he did out of costume.
Oh yes, I caught that. I also thought hat tip to DeMatteis. There's a neat trick he does here with language. I don't know that I can duplicate it with us talking about it. You almost need to see the words, but Payne is thinking, my flesh isn't real. I'm protected. Always protected. Always protected. Always, the first usage, ALWAYS. The second way, 2 words, ALLWAY. It's a neat trick, summing up the psyche, the whole of this character. But yeah, drunk Payne has decided that somebody is going to pay.
Yeah.
And he materializes in California to the home of a mobster named Bacino. Now, a quick aside, if you listen to last week was the Steve Gerber, Scott Edelman episode.
Right.
Week before that, the Atlas Demon Hunter episode. This calls back to that. Bacino is not a character that we've seen in the Marvel comics. This is DeMatteis doing a callback to that Atlas Comics Demon Hunter, which I really thought was a neat trick here. But yeah, he's shown up at his complex, and he's decided to kill him.
Yeah, and they're in the middle of a family gathering. It's really, it reminded me, Brian, of your second favorite TV series of all time, of course, The Sopranos.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In the sense that he smashes his way into this organized crime gathering, and what the gathering is a family event of some kind.
Yeah.
Where the generations of the family are gathered. There's a kid on the floor playing with toys, another child on her mother's lap, and he gets in there, and what does he see? He sees the couple of guys who are reaching for their guns, or at least one of them, are demons, devils,
so he thinks.
Or so he thinks. But Bacino tells his gunsols, I love that word, to put away their guns. They have no use for violence in this house. And initially, he doesn't know who this is in this costume. And then he realizes that it's Eric Simon Payne. Payne, basically says, it's your fault that my family died. An innocent woman and child died. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not his family. The family of the person Bacino had hired him to plant this bomb.
Right. Bacino had hired him to murder Ian Fate.
Right. Fate's wife and child died in the bomb instead.
Exactly.
And he's carried that guilt forever. Eric Simon Payne has carried that guilt forever. And now he's here to say it's your fault that these people died.
Bacino is having none of that. He cold cocks Devil Slayer,
yep,
lays him out on the floor, and says, "You idiot, you came crawling to me begging for work. I gave you a chance, paid you good money, treated you like a brother, and this is my thanks? You were a killer, Payne. Nothing more, nothing less." Basically, do you expect me to take on your sins? Well, I won't.
Yeah, that's the key line, I think, right there. Yeah, I love that line.
Not for nothing, but the mobster is absolutely right.
Yep. Yeah. When he says, I've got enough blood on my hands without washing in yours, so get out of here, Payne. You've shamed me in front of my family. And Payne is like, Payne loses it. You dare speak to me that way? He pulls out a gun, and as he's doing that, he glances over and he sees these, the children of Buccino, their children, their wives, all staring at him in horror. They're protecting their children, their loved ones from him. And then he realizes it. He says, "Forgive me, Carlo. You have your road to walk, and I have," and he disappears back into the negative zone, mine. And we're back into that place where he wants to die.
Right. Back in the negative zone. We then get our second interlude of the issue. It's Washington, D.C. on a clear spring afternoon, and we see the presidential motorcade making its way down Pennsylvania Avenue, and behind the bulletproof glass sits the President of the United States, Kyle Richmond.
Yep.
What? So, to recap here, folks, Kyle Richmond, a.k.a. Nighthawk, is dead, except that Nighthawk appeared to Doctor Strange, Hulk, and Submariner, very much alive and in the flesh, and now Kyle Richmond is the President of the United States. What's going on here? You'll have to wait to find out.
Some listeners already know, Brian.
Well, yeah, but
some listeners... Yes, go ahead.
I'm thinking about youngsters like author Wesley Southard, who listens to us every week, or author Wiley Young, who listens to us at work. These are young men in their 20s. They never read these. These are old people comic books to them. And this is all new to them. These are the
classics.
Yeah.
Let's take our own momentary interlude here just to say that I am currently reading. I'm indulging myself because I'm supposed to be reading for the Twisted Book of Shadows, which I am. I only have 130 stories to go. But indulging myself by reading an epic collection of Power Man and Iron Fist stories from this same era. And I got to tell you, Mary Jo Duffy was a hell of a writer.
Oh, hell yes.
And I think that in my memory of Power Man and Iron Fist from that era, most of what I read, I think, came before she was the writer on the title, when it was all still pretty freaking hokey.
Right.
But by the time Mary Jo Duffy was writing Power Man and Iron Fist, and it was a very complex, it was a superhero story, but it was also a drama. It was great, and I have to say, I never, my wildest dreams, I got to her last issue in this collection last night, flipped the page and saw that legendary Denny O'Neil is taking over. So it's Denny O'Neil and Dennis Cowan, the team who wrote and drew my all-time favorite DC comic book, The Question.
Yeah, their run on Power Man and Iron Fist is fantastic as well.
I have no doubt. And yet, I was very disappointed. Imagine that. I flipped the page to get to, and saw that it was Denny O'Neil taking over. And as much as I love him, as a writer, I was disappointed to have reached the end of Mary Jo Duffy's run. So that's a momentary interlude. But back to this, we're out of the interlude, Brian, and we're with a father and son. The dad is mowing the lawn. The son is playing basketball, and telling his father to hurry up, finish up, and hey, Dad, what's that over there? Who's that man? And the dad goes over, and we find out that the dad's a guy named Brian.
Brian Kingston, who served in Vietnam with Devil Slayer, with Eric Simon Payne.
There you go. So he wants Eric to come inside. He's calling for his wife, Diane. Diane, look who it is. And Diane knows him too, and they invite Devil Slayer inside.
Right. And that doesn't go well. They sit down for family dinner, and in a nutshell, this guy, he's got the kids 2.0 and the beautiful wife and the beautiful house, and he's happy. He has everything that Eric Simon Payne doesn't have.
Well, and I think I want to point out here too, I don't think it's just that he has everything that Eric Simon Payne doesn't have. He went through all of the same things that Eric Simon Payne went through, and yet he has this life.
Exactly.
And I think that combination is the thing that sort of just it becomes overwhelming. So Brian would never let him go. He would do anything for him, but he runs out of the house.
Right. And he returns once again to the negative zone, except this time the ghost of Sunshine returns with him and appears before him.
And they're rocketing through the negative zone on another asteroid.
Yeah, and Sunshine tells him, deep down you knew you couldn't blame the war for what happened to you. You couldn't blame your wife. The problem was in your gut. It was basically Payne's own weaknesses, his reliance on alcohol, his alcoholism,
right,
that turned him, quote, into the abysmal wreck I am today.
At least he's aware. The Ghost of Sunshine then, in fine Christmas Carol form, brings him to Jerusalem. And yet he says, "Why have you brought me here?" And the ghost says, "Hey, how could I bring you here? I'm dead, remember? If you're here, it's because you want to be here, because she's here." Eric Simon Payne is walking downstairs, stumbles drunkenly and falls on his face, mumbling Sunshine. He's passed out, and he's discovered by someone, Brian, and I'll let you take it from there, because I know this is your...
It turns out it's his wife, Corey. You'll last remember. Now, we saw a fake Corey, of course, when he killed Sunshine, but the last time we saw the real life Corey was in Jerusalem. It was during the Six-Fingered Hand saga. She was a follower of the false prophet David, who turned out to actually be possessed by one of the demons of the hand. But she has remained in Jerusalem, and she's nursed him back to health. And, basically they're reunited, and he goes to flee, and she stops him, and she says, "Whatever it is that's brought you here, it's all right." And Devil Slayer breaks down, breaks into tears, hugs her. She soothes him. And as she's trying to soothe him, he snaps. He slaps her, strikes her, knocks her down, calls her a vapid idiot for following David. Basically she forgives him. She says, "David was a false Messiah. I was misled, but that doesn't change the fact that what David stood for was real, that all the hopes, prayers, and precious dreams were real." We then have a real interesting artwork here, something you didn't see a lot in Marvel Comics back then. Mm-hmm. A picture of Jesus on the wall, a crucifix during this dialogue. Not something you saw a lot of, maybe outside of occasionally referenced in Daredevil. And basically, we get them talking back and forth here. He can't forgive himself.
Yeah, he says he's not worthy of her love or absolution.
Right.
So we've gone from this thing to all of a sudden it is a, we've been sort of, I'm reading along thinking, yes, this is interesting. It's a story about his alcoholism. But now we have sunk into the depths of what it means to be alcoholic. I mean, this guy hates himself. He's tearing himself apart. He's ruining his life. And even when he has the potential, someone who's willing to forgive him and to give him the comfort that he needs, he can't even accept it. And so then he's having this conversation with her, and the ghost again appears. Of course, Corey can't see the ghost, but he gives him sort of last minute advice. And Corey wants him to kneel with her and pray.
Right. And he can't do that. This man who knows hell is real, who knows Satan is real, who's fought Satan alongside the Defenders, can't bring himself to kneel and pray to God for forgiveness. That's how deep his pathos runs. Yeah, he doesn't even think he's worthy of God's forgiveness.
Yeah, and let's just say, by the way, this is a character who believes in God. That is not necessary. And again, I just want to make perfectly clear, I I'm not saying that you're pathological if you won't kneel and pray. All right, there we go. Move on.
Yeah, I'm not saying that either. But this is a character who knows God exists, and
right,
one of the tenets of that religion,
yes,
is that anybody is worthy of forgiveness.
Correct.
But he believes that he is not, and so he takes Corey in the shadow cloak, takes them both to the negative zone, and she says, "If you're going to die, then I'm going to die with you."
And of course, he won't allow that.
Right. So he brings her back, asks her to help him believe, and then we get to the epilogue.
There you go.
4 months later, Doctor Strange. And go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Doctor Strange reading a letter. Dear Doctor Strange, it's been hard for us since that night in Jerusalem. That night seems like centuries ago. Basically, we find out that Devil Slayer, as Eric Simon Payne, surrendered to the authorities for the crimes he committed before he joined the Defenders. He's in prison. Corey has a small apartment where she's living next to the prison, and she's trying to support him. He's atoning for his sins. She thanks Doctor Strange for his kindness and concern. Doctor Strange seals the letter, and then we get a final word balloonless panel, and the Sorcerer Supreme is weeping.
There you go.
And thus, we come to the end, well, at least for the Bronze Age era of Marvel Comics, of Eric Simon Payne, Devil Slayer.
All right. and on that note, I want to say that reading the floppy comic, on the letters page, I just want to quickly point this out, they had conducted a poll to see, because DeMatteis had used so many characters in his run of the Defenders, and so many people had been Defenders during the course of the 110 issues that had come before, they conducted a poll of readers to see who they thought should be in the Defenders.
Right.
And they list the top 20 results, and I'm going to read them in order very quickly, because I find it really interesting, at least a couple of them interesting. Doctor Strange, number 1. Valkyrie, number 2. Hellcat, number 3. Now, they've got me there. I agree with all 3 of those. Number 4, the Silver Surfer. Number 5, the Gargoyle, which I find fascinating because he's a new character and an odd character, but clearly readers have embraced him. Number 6, Clea. 7, the Beast. 8, Nighthawk. 9, Devil Slayer. 10, Moon Knight. Son of Satan, Submariner, Hulk, She-Hulk, who'd never been in the book.
Right.
The Angel, Wonder Man, Jack of Hearts, I don't know why, Daredevil, Ghost Rider, and the Scarlet Witch. So a very interesting, an interesting array of characters.
What's interesting, all of those, except for She-Hulk and the Scarlet Witch, have appeared in the Defenders.
Correct.
So yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah. So I thought,
Chris, I hate to do this. I know we promised readers that we would get to issue 111 as well, and I know you're dying to talk about Hellcat. But what we didn't say at the beginning of the show, Dungeon Master 77.1, my 10-year-old, currently has a case of strep throat, and I just his mom has been patiently watching him while you and I recorded this, but I just got a text, and she's had something come up for work, so I got to get back to taking care of him. So we're going to have to cut the show short today.
Yeah, well, we've put in a good episode about Devil Slayer. I think that's fine, and I think we make absolutely certain that we are more on target in the future as we go forward. So we'll pick up with 111 next episode. And Brian, what's the Marvel team up that we're supposed to do next episode?
Let me look here. We have Defenders 111, which is Hellcat, but we're also going to see more of this weird Nighthawk Kyle Richmond stuff that's going on.
Yes.
And then we have Avengers Annual number 11 at some point we need to get to.
Okay. All right, we'll sort it out, folks, and we'll surprise you next episode. It will be definitely Defenders 111, possibly 112, and assorted related comics.
That's right. One more time, if you enjoy this show, you may enjoy Three Guys with Beards, which we mentioned at the beginning. You may also enjoy The Horror Show with Brian Keene. Defenders Dialogue, The Horror Show with Brian Keene, and Three Guys with Beards are some of the more than 24 shows brought to you for free by the Project Entertainment Network. If you enjoy the shows, maybe consider supporting them. You go to projectentertainmentnetwork.com. You can buy T-shirts, coffee mugs, etc. They also have a patron page where you can hear exclusive episodes you won't hear anywhere else. So check them out.
There you go. Absolutely.
Send us home, Chris.
You know, Brian, all I can say is I hope Dungeon Master feels better. And Excelsior to him.
Excelsior to him indeed. We'll see you next week, folks.
Do you love comic books and consider yourself a die-hard fan? Then you need to listen to Parlapod. We have news, reviews, and interviews with your favorite pros, all while bringing some serious laughs. New episodes drop every Wednesday in time for New Comic Book Day. Parlapod is available on the Project Entertainment Network, all major podcast outlets, and parlapod.com. Tune in and fuel your fandom with Parlapod.
My Favorite Story, a podcast author anthology featuring short fiction from the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network shows.
Three guys with beards. Jim Moore, Jonathan Maybury, and Chris Golden.
Tom Clark from Necrocast Igborn.
Brian Keene of The Horror Show. Chuck Buda. And Armand Rosamilia of the Mando Method.
Mary San Giovanni of Cosmic Shenanigans.
Jay Wilburn from Matters of Faith.
John Urbansick of Ink Stains.
Biz Zung's Mr. Frank.
Available on Kindle and in paperback and through the Project Entertainment Network store.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.